Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the preseason picture for season 13. I am your host, CrasH. I'm joined by the team captain for What Do You Beef, Seagull. And today we're going to be talking about what the picture looks like for season 13, what happened in season 12, and how the offseason went for all the teams. What are they facing now, and what challenges await them in the new season? Seagull, how you doing?
I'm doing freaking great, Crash. I'm ready for this season, ready for this draft, ready for this episode for the preseason picture. I'm feeling really excited. I think we got a good draft ahead of us, and I think we got some good teams this season.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree with you. Now, talking a bit about yourself, you are the team captain for What Do You Beef? Obviously, pretty big shoes to fill since Sentinel was released and then moved up to prospect. So, pretty big shoes to fill in that role. But I'm sure you can. Blow us all out of the water. It's not like it'll be difficult to live up to the expectations of last season, but we'll see how it goes for you.
Yeah, definitely big shout outs to Sentinel. He definitely helped me kind of figure all my stuff out. Kind of a good way to get introduced into CSC and a good way to kind of get my footing. Even though we didn't have the greatest season last season, I think this season with me as captain and Noble as the IGL, I think things are going to do really well.
Absolutely. And super excited to see what you guys do during this season. But enough with the small talk. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about our first team up on the chopping block for this season's preseason picture, FRG. Lay it on us what you got with them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. FRG. They were They were in the season 12 finals. They ended up losing to Sav. But they unfortunately in the offseason they lost some star players. They lost Poutine and Kev both to prospect. Kev being Prodigy Toast, in case you're not aware.
Mm,
It's
mm.
very easy to mix up the Toast Bros. But they still have Toast going into this, and they also signed Penguins during the offseason. I sense a struggle for the Oppers there, CrasH. I know Toast loves the Op, and I know
That's true.
Penguins also loves to Op. So we'll
I've
see who's going to take it over. I really don't know.
I've never seen I've never played with Penguins. Even during combines I wasn't able to see him. I know he did get his games in, but I never saw him whenever I was in recruit, so I have no idea how attached he is to the weapon. But I went and reached out to both of them actually while we were writing the script for this episode, and they said it was something that they were going to discuss throughout the course of the season. So again, not really a clear picture on who's going to be opper for the totem pole this season, but I will tell you that they are going to need to really go hard in the draft if they want to have a chance of repeating their successes of the previous season, because they're already starting off not necessarily in the clear with the op struggles. Now, however, if there's anybody in the CSC and much less the recruit tier who could bring a team out of a situation like this, it is absolutely Toast and Prodigy Toast. Those two are widely regarded as two of the biggest brains in all of recruit. Now, obviously, Prodigy Toast moving up to prospect, big hit for the roster. However, it has been made aware to me after talking to both of them for some time that it was Toast who was really pulling the strings a lot behind the scenes. And while Prodigy Toast would handle the calling in game and he would control the flow of the game outside of the server, it was 100% Toast from what I've been told and from my experiences with the team as well. We never did scrim them during the season, but you don't necessarily have to go off just your own personal experience when you're determining these kind of things. So if there's anybody who could bring them out of a situation like this, it is definitely them. But it's been a devastating offseason for them, to say the least. I mean, they had all of their plans and all of their ideas, all of the rumors for all of the players that were supposed to go to them too. With everybody getting moved at the prospect and the big promotion wave, definitely messed over a lot of their plans. So we will have to see what they do. I'm excited, and actually, as of this time, the totem pole hasn't won a championship at all in any of their tiers, if I remember correctly. I do believe that's correct.
Yeah, that's
So,
so surprising when you think about it. They
mhm.
have such a good franchise overall. Their GM's awesome. They've got obviously their AGM's pretty sweet too, Mr. Prodigy Toast himself. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see how they do in the draft and how they do this season.
Absolutely. And they've got a really great culture over there, and it's widely regarded as one of the best franchises to be in all of the tiers. So super excited to see what they do. Can they reach the podium at the end of season 13? We will find out later down the line. But now, bringing up our next team, we've got Order of the Samurai, season 12 quarterfinalists. Fun size, their dedicated opera will not be returning for season 13. So they'll be looking for a new opera as a result. They've still got Hector and they've still got Matt, if I'm correct. And they just recently signed lineman Luke through free agency, who is definitely a solid pickup, 1.0 rating, really, really, really good pickup on their part to snag him when they did. And they're notoriously quiet franchise, right? You don't really hear a whole lot about them. They kind of stay out of the media and they kind of stay in their own lane in terms of who they like to pug with and who they like to do tryouts with. Because as far as I know, I don't think Order of the Samurai has ever had a an actual 10 man's night. I don't think that's ever happened. So we'll have to
They
see.
might have had 1 or 2 last season, but I can't really remember, to be perfectly honest with
I
you.
can't either. It's definitely a very, very quiet franchise. So we'll have to see if they'll make some noise in the media this season. Been trying to get an interview set up with one of them, but just haven't been able to really make it work. So I'm super excited during the season for season 12. They really struggled a lot with speed, and ATL took advantage of the lack of speed on their T side with in the quarterfinals there, which is why they weren't able to make it as far as they were projected to in the middle of the season. So we will have to see how they combat those. We will have to see if Hector changes up any calls, any plays, or if they just go with a new IGL entirely. We will have to see. Super excited to see what they're capable of.
Definitely, definitely. And that number 1 overall draft pick is gonna help them out a lot. That is going to be
True.
huge for them.
I think
Picking up
it's
someone like a Sinbad or like a V Sugma would be crazy for these guys. That would help them out a ton.
and they absolutely have the cap space for it too, because most of their players are around mid to low price. So they're definitely looking for a really really expensive player, and I think they're going to find it with that number one overall pick. You're absolutely right. And who we got next up there on the chopping block for this?
Next up, we got your favorites, CrasH. We got ATL, your boys in blue, dare I say.
Yes.
Other than you being lost from their recruit team, they also had Bud move up to prospect, and then it was Rooney that went to AP. So they're looking to rebuild around Ruby Rax and Enders right now, and they're really in need of an entry and a rifler. They went with the 2-collar season last season with both Enders. Actually, remind me again, who were their 2 colors last season?
It
Enders
was me.
helped
It was
out.
me. It was me and Ruby Rex. Enders was
You and
injured.
Ruby Rax, thank you. That's
Yeah.
right. Enders was injured. The Jetta helped him out with that.
Hmm.
No more Jettas this year, Enders. I know you're watching. Uh,
At least as far as we know.
but yes, Enders is coming off of a wrist injury this year. That's right. That
Hmm.
knocked him out for season 12. So we'll see if their new system can work out. Not sure who's going to be IGLing this season. I'm assuming it's going to
Ruby,
be
I
Ruby Rax.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ruby, I believe will be taking over full time calling unless they can pick up a second IGL in the draft. But as far as I know, there's no more IGLs on the board. So we'll have to see. It's difficult to
There is
determine.
there is Scary. Scary's an
Oh, I
IGL.
forgot about Scary. Yeah,
Don't
and he
forget
could
about Scary.
absolutely.
He's terrifying.
He is absolutely terrifying. The very definition of fear itself. But um, they could definitely do with a scary. I think the two-color system worked well for the controlled aggression that was displayed by their two riflers in season 12. I think that controlled aggression, if they are able to repeat it with two different pieces, I think that would be massive for them. And there's kind of debate right now over who's going to pick up the op for them this season between Enders and Wakeful, and I'm not entirely sure who's going to be the one picking up the op. We'll have to see how that goes in preseason. I know Wakeful opt for them in playoffs when Rooney wasn't necessarily feeling it. So, and Wakeful absolutely demolished during those quarterfinals and during the semifinals as well. He played extremely well. So, we'll have to see how it goes. I'm excited to see what Wakeful and Enders can do here. But again, another thing to keep in mind is that Enders' stats may not be what they were in the one game that he played last season because, again, he's coming off of that injury and he's coming off of a lot of time off. So, again, we may see an impact in the statistics. We may see an impact in the team. All of it's just kind of unclear when it comes to ATL right now. So, we'll just have to see how they do in the draft and wait for preseason to kind of determine what direction that they are attempting to go.
Definitely, definitely. Next up, we got AVI.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
look at the rundown on them. What do you got for us, Crash?
AVI. Oh my goodness. So they didn't make playoffs last season, which I mean, it's in a 12-team league with an 8-team bracket. You know what I mean? Kind of weird, but they didn't make playoffs. They struggled a lot despite having really powerful pieces. Like they had Noah, they had Dirt McGirt, Dan Granger at the time was also a super powerful player. And they had Locio as their opper, and then they also had
And let's
Clancy
let's
as
not
their support.
forget too. they lost out on their playoff spot by a tiebreaker,
They
right?
did.
It was a tiebreaker, and it was the tiebreaker on the only CS:GO game that was played last season, which is really tough for them because honestly, man, that team deserved to go to playoffs. It was so tough. Like I felt like they really had it. I know Clancy was pretty upset about it after the season.
Yeah, the Nan comeback, I think, is what really that the butterfly effect from that roster change that they made was massive during the season. But we'll get to that whenever we talk about NA nades. Keeping things on the subject, they've recently signed Noah in a package deal with Colty, who was one of the big players, one of the big boys on Angry Pirates last season. Again, he's already proven himself time and time again last season and in combines and in the offseason. I mean, the man's grind is impeccable, and he truly is one of the best players in the tier. We'll have to see if Noah's Mind can take advantage of that skill difference that is between Colty and a lot of the other players that they'll be going up against. But another thing to keep in mind is that Dank Ranger will not be returning for season 13. So at the moment, they only have 4 players. However, these 4 players are extremely expensive, and I don't think it's a secret to anybody. Clancy's at 289, Noah's at 284, Colty's at like 260 something, 256, I think is what he's at. And then Dirt is like 240. I don't know.
Somewhere around there.
Their total comes up to a big number, right? And we did the math earlier when we were writing the script. They don't have a whole lot of options in terms of free agents or in draft stock. So
Right.
they're really going to struggle when it comes to that number situation, and we'll have to see what they do in order to figure out. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they could do and how they actually solve this. But yeah, like I said, those players are extremely expensive. It's going to be very difficult to build around that
And with
core
that
roster.
being and with that being said too, like they kind of have their free pick in the draft, right? Because they already have 4 players that they're pretty sure are going to end up on the final 5 at the end of the preseason. So it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to pick up like a budget player in the, 190, 180 MMR range who's been playing pretty decently in combines. They might be looking for that budget pick, in the first round. So we'll have to see.
We will have to see, but again, not a whole lot of options for them. So we're gonna have to see them get creative if they want to make that core 4 work. But moving on. Who's next on our chopping block, Seagull?
Next, it's gonna be Deadbeats, brand spanking
Ooh,
new franchise. I love the Deadbeats recruit
oh
name.
yeah,
Riff Raiders. That's so cool.
that
That's
is very
such a
cool.
cool name. Looks like they signed former AP Opper Milky as well as a former prospect IGL Shane 216, and that's really all we know at this point in time. We'll kind of have to wait and see, and just kind of go from there. Um, oh wow, actually I am so wrong. Let's literally axe all of that because I was looking at ABW and not
Oh
Deadbeats.
yeah. Whoops. Yeah, that I was like, something doesn't sound right, but I'm gonna nod and pretend I understand.
Nope, I got that
Something,
completely wrong.
yeah,
My
yeah.
eyes were in
So
the wrong spot on the page.
Deadbeats of Dewey Fan, not Milky, and Dewey
Yes,
Fan is one of their AGMs now. I'm pretty sure, right?
Dewey Fan
Because
did get promoted to AGM of
it's
Deadbeats.
going to be
That's
a
right.
relatively quick process for him because he was a transaction manager in the league. Speaking of which, if you want to sign up for a staff position in Counter Strike Confederation, highly recommend you do so. Definitely is one way to get your name out there and be able to get opportunities like AGM and GM should the need arise within your franchise form. So just keep an eye out for openings like that. But continue, Siegel.
But yeah, Deadbeats. They just signed Dewey Fan, and Dewey's probably going to be opting for that team, I assume. And I'm assuming he's been doing pretty much all of the scouting, aside from maybe their GM. I don't know exactly who their GM is. Is it Kai's or is it Digital? I
It's
forget.
digital. Digital is the
Digital.
Deadbeats
Okay.
GM. Yeah, Kai's runs Abyss Walkers now.
Right, right, right. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what they're cooking. They haven't picked anybody else up in free agency or in trades. But I think they have a pretty middle of the pack first round pick. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do.
Absolutely, and I think that's a big pattern that we're seeing here in season 13 is that well, they're making hard on the draft, just like everybody else. The draft is usually the biggest part of the off season, or really the biggest part of the season in terms of the big moves that happen. But we've seen teams work with free agents before and work heavily in free agency before. So it's not entirely out of the question for a team to not so heavily rely on their draft stock, like AVI, for example. But it seems most teams are going the route of draft stock, and that seems to be what Did Beats wants to do. They're going to build a core around Dewey Fan, and I don't think there's a better player out there that they could have chosen to build a core around. We did an interview with him not too long ago. You can go watch that on our channel, but he's a super, super strong player. He was when he played on UPS, he was the entry support lurk IGL opper. So uh we'll have to see. He can do anything and everything all at once. So really, really good
Definitely.
individual to build a core around. All they really need now is 4-star riflers, right? So we'll have to see if they can make that work. But next up on our chopping block is your team, Seagull. We got what do you beef now?
Moo! That's
No
our official
secret,
statement.
no secret about last season. Worst performing team by far, and it's not even close, right? Roster
It's kind of
changes.
close. It was 2 wins to 1 win. Okay.
That's we'll stop that right there. Roster changes for the throughout the whole course of the season, and I mean you obviously have a lot more perspective on this than I do, but I'm just going to kind of read off the points. They just cut, like we said earlier, they cut their IGL and their captain in Sentinel, and then he got bumped at the prospect, so there's no way they're getting him back anytime soon. Um, they traded their Opper Sapphire away to Hellfire, which was an interesting move to say the least. That definitely sparked a lot of conversation. So we'll talk about that more whenever we move on to Hellfire. But for now, we're talking about what do you beef. They just signed their new. What I'm hearing is an IGL and an Opper in Noble. He didn't do it last season for AP, but he's going to try and do it this season, is what I've been told as a member of the press. Obviously, you have more details on this than I do. And obviously you were made captain in Sentinel's place. Can you come back from the edge of oblivion? Lay it on me. Can't do you think that you're gonna be able to do it?
I really think we can. I really, really do. We've got Noble, myself, Fresh, and Twisted as the keepers right now. We're looking at picking up someone who can really like fill the rifling shoes out a little bit more in the draft. We're loosely looking for an opper. But I think Noble's probably going to be taking up that mantle this season. We'll just have to wait and see if we can find someone else in the draft. Maybe someone drop down from prospect or something like that that we just can't pass up on. But yeah, I don't wanna say too much because if I say too much, I'm in big trouble. So that's all I got.
Fair enough. I mean, you can't just go leaking your team's strategy. We can speculate about all the other teams, but it's something that you know. So we're gonna go ahead and move on from that. Who's next up on our chopping block there, Siegel?
Yeah. Next up, we got Abyss Walkers, brand new franchise. Kai's is the GM. This offseason, they've signed 2 FAs so far. They have signed former Angry Pirates Opper Milky, my boy with the fancy mustache, and
Mm-hmm.
they signed Shane 216 as the IGL. Originally, it was kind of looking like Milky might do the entry role, and Shane was going to be a op IGL on Acadian arc. But after talking with them both, it kind of seems like Milky's going to stay on the op, which is pretty interesting.
I mean, yeah, there was definitely a couple of question marks going around whenever the rumor came around that Milky was going to be entering. I think it was just a joke that got taken a little bit too far. That's definitely happened once before, and somebody lost their entire career over it. So we're not going to get too far into that. But it's one of those things, right, where everybody was just kind of like, there's no way that's real, right? There's no way that we got 2 all by GLs in recruit. There's no way that could happen in season 13 of Counter-Strike Confederation, but it absolutely can. Unfortunately, just not meant to be. So we'll have to see Milky on the op for Abyss Walkers. I'm super excited to see what they do. Honestly, I'm predicting a playoff run out of them. They have super smart guys at the top, and yeah, I'm predicting a playoff run for them 100%. Those two, Milky and Shane 216, they already mesh off of each other so well. I mean, I've played with both of them recently, and both of them on the same team. They mesh together so well. Their chemistry is basically unmatched in terms of DEs with returning players. So they're gonna definitely have an early advantage in preseason. We'll probably see them exercise it in a few sweeping Ws, but that's all I got for Abyss Walkers.
Yeah, definitely. I would have to agree with you on the playoff run there. They're definitely one of those kind of teams that might be viewed as a little bit more of an underdog going into playoffs, but I think they have a chance to make a deep run here for sure. Just depends on who they're going to pick up in the draft, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it is all going to depend on draft stock, and everybody know it's again, it's no secret that this season of recruit is the draft stock doesn't necessarily go as deep as it did last season because of the way that the skill curve has shifted. The skill curve has shifted more so away from recruit and prospect, and it's more shifted over towards contender slash like high prospect, right? So that's where really the average skill and the most players are really falling at the current moment. So it's again no secret because well, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but we had a lot of people get moved up the season, right? So it is
Yeah,
just
it was. I
it's
think it
no
was.
secret that the draft stock is not going to run as deep, right? So teams are going to have to make really really good decisions early, and hopefully we won't see it bite them later down the road. So the draft this season is going to be more important than maybe any other season in recruits here, let alone CSC history, right? I mean, this season is totally going to change everything. So super excited to see what they pull off. Next up, we got Yokai Cafe, and it's not Yokai Cafe anymore. It is Pact of Embers, right? I keep wanting to call him DRG because it's for dragons, but I thought POE works just as well. But you know, I'm just a talking head on a screen. I don't know very much. I just read the words on the paper and say the funny joke. So Pact of Embers, team faced challenges in season 12, to say the least, right? They were ranked second to last, I'm pretty sure. Uh, Again, we went into interview with their new captain about this. She joined the team late in season 12, Wee Little Pancake, and she made it very clear in her interview that they just didn't practice. They didn't practice, they didn't play outside of match days, and that's really what came back to bite them in the entirety of season 12, right? So obviously we're gonna have to see that change for sure if we want them to be competitive this season. And I think that's absolutely what's gonna happen. I think she's gonna take over and really run that franchise how she sees fit, and I think it's gonna be infinitely better than whatever they put out last season, right? So
Definitely.
and with the shift in leadership as well, because Proto runs the franchise now instead of Anexile. It was originally Shell Spells, and then he got sacked for reasons unknown to all of us. Unfortunately, that press release was not made. So again, no idea. But Shell Spells got sacked. Death's Orchestra rebrand got killed, and we are now here with Pact of Embers. And I gotta say, I like the branding, I like the logo, and I definitely like what they. Well, I definitely like what they're doing. But again, another difficulty for them this season, and I think the biggest one they're going to face so far, they're starting from complete scratch. They got nothing.
Yeah,
They got
one
absolutely nothing.
100%. Yeah, and I know Pancake pretty well, and I know Proto a decent amount. He was the AGM for Cal last season, so I
Mhm.
know him and Sans have some really good chemistry. They're buddies and all that. But yeah, I got faith in Proto. I got faith in Pancake. I think they're going to be able to make this season work out pretty well for them. Don't know if they'll make playoffs or not, but we'll see. I think their aim here is just to make a team that they can be confident in, and really just try to win some games. That's the main
Definitely.
idea.
Definitely. And I think I absolutely agree with you. That is going to be what is most important here. Clear intention to just completely rebuild, just nuke that old lineup, and they completely got rid of it. So we'll have to see what happens from here. But after them, we got on the chopping block Hellfire. Say, will give us the rundown.
Yes, Hellfire. Season 12. They were doing a little rough early in the season, and then they made the switch kind of mid-season to sign Brass Biscuit, and that kind of turned their season around, and they were actually able to make playoffs with that. Brass is still on the team this season, but unfortunately, their opper, Colin J, got moved up to prospect. So they're struggling a little bit there. But with that being said, they just traded for an Opper in Sapphire from Cow. So they actually have their Opper back. Mainly now, what they're looking for is an IGL. I believe Goblin was their IGL last season, but from what it sounds like, the rumors going around, it kind of seems like he's not going to want to IGL this season if he doesn't have to. So they're probably going to be looking at some IGLs in the draft.
As far as I know, the only IGL left in the draft is Scary, and with ATL having the two-color system, we may see a draft battle, and maybe even a trade for an earlier pick between the two franchises. So that would be interesting to see. But again, and Scary is definitely not projected to go very early in the draft, so that would be a shocker on draft night for sure as well. But I think it'd be a really, really good pickup for them if indeed what you say is true and Goblin does not want to IGL. That's really their only other option, as far as I know. right? Judging positions is so difficult in this tier because not everybody is really comfortable in their play style. A lot of people that come into this tier are just starting out in competitive Counter-Strike and they really don't know what to do and they really just aren't really sure how the whole thing works. So developing those players is really the main goal of the tier. And if you see somebody who's comfortable calling, then you jump on that, right? You jump on that and you hold on to that because somebody who's comfortable with calling is going to be infinitely superior to somebody who's never called before and is not comfortable with calling. I'm not comfortable with calling, which is why I only mid-rounded last season, right? I am not comfortable full-time calling, right? So, but I wanted to have an impact in those rounds because I knew that we could take advantage of our speed, and I think that we're going to see that again from maybe even a new IGL, right? Somebody who we had no idea could even have the potential to call. We're going to absolutely see that this season. But as of right now, Scary is the only option for him. So if they're looking for an IGL, they better get ahead of ATL in the draft picks. That's for sure. But they got the 8th overall pick at the current moment. We'll have to see how it goes out. We'll have to see how it goes for him. And Brass Biscuit staying on the team. He's not going anywhere. Let's be honest. He's a Hellfire lifer, right? He's bounced around from team to team for season 12. He's found his home, and that's exactly where they're going to stay. They're going to build that core around him and Doxic. And I think trading for Sapphire is also a good move because they were desperately in need of somebody who's comfortable with opping, and she's very comfortable with opping. We're all very well aware of this. She's very comfortable with opping, and she's very good at it. There's that absolutely cannot be denied. Her mechanics when it comes to opping are some of it, possibly the best in the tier, right? So we're definitely going to see an interesting run out of them to be sure. Expect them to be a weapon during the season.
Definitely, definitely. So next up, looks like we got Nan coming in. What do you got for us, Crash?
Nan, NA Nades. Oh my gosh, season 12 quarterfinalists. They faced UPS in the quarterfinals, if I am correct. They started the season 0-4. 0-4 in an 11 game season. Man, you don't have a whole lot of room for error for the rest of it, right? You basically have to run the table, and that's exactly what they did, right? They made 2 roster changes, one right after the other. Bang! They dropped Tilly, they got E-Rock, and they just started working, right? They ran the table and made a miraculous comeback to make playoffs, and that is so important. But unfortunately, they've lost Gear and they've lost Gear Slayer and they've lost Yin. So again,
They've
they'll be
also lost
projected.
Erock. Erock went up
True.
to
He
Prospect as
also
well.
he also went up to prospect. I completely
Hmm.
forgot about that. So they lost all of their weapons, all of that work that they did to build that roster in the middle of season 12 to try and strangle the championship run out of it. They did a lot of good work, but unfortunately, it's the way it goes sometimes with numbers, right? So that's just the way that it worked out for them. They'll be starting from complete scratch around Van Wishawn, who is the most recent signing for them. He came out of free agency. He was a big question mark in free agency as well. Not a whole lot of people knew him. I actually think he came down from prospect, if my sources prove me correct. We will have to double check that at a later date. I'm not really sure on that. But what I am sure of is that he's playing for NA Nades this season, and I don't think they're planning on getting rid of him either. He's looking like he's going to be the guy they're going to build their core around. So,
Definitely,
uh,
definitely. And I know how it feels starting the season 0-4, believe me. So yeah, we'll have to see what they can do. Them turning it around last season was really cool to watch,
Mhm.
honestly. So we'll have to see what they can do this season. I totally agree. But next up, we've got AP,
Oh
Angry
yeah.
Pirates. Very interesting franchise to take a look at here. Last season, they didn't make playoffs, and their roster, for those of you that don't know, was Milky, Noble, Colty, SkyRL, who's in Prospect this year, and then Triple Man most of the season, who was then cut for Pump Camp later on in the season. Now, Triple Man is their AGM. They just had a change in management, and I believe Triple Man was the only person that they've kept who played last season. With Sky getting moved to Prospect, with Colty getting cut, with Milky getting cut, and then Noble getting traded to Cow, Triple was kind of the only one they had. So they went out and they actually made some big moves in free agency. They were able to sign Opera Rooney and former YC captain Tim the Big One. So we'll have to see if they have some better luck this time around. I know they struggled quite a bit last season, but we'll see if they can get the chemistry going and get cooking.
And we will have to see. I will put this out there. Tim the Big One, if he is being made captain, um YC didn't have a great finishing last season, so we'll have to see if he's learned from some of the mistakes that he made as captain of YC, now Pact of Embers, right? So we'll have to see if he's put any effort into improving his style as leader, and I'm super excited to see what he does with AP if he is made captain. I'm not entirely sure if he's the captain. That much has not been made clear yet. We'll definitely see more of a clear picture on that come preseason. But I think another thing that's not getting talked about enough, Rooney, right? Rooney, he was one of my teammates last season. That man is such a sleeper. Everybody sleeps on that guy. Everybody sleeps on that guy. I'm so sick of hearing people not talk about him and be putting him in the conversation for one of the best offers in the tier because he absolutely is, right? When he is allowed to play, right? Because he's in college, so he doesn't exactly have a whole lot of time to play video games, and that's totally fair. But when he does play, he shows up, right? He absolutely shows up, and he freaking wipes the floor with anybody who comes to his bomb site or his mid or his cave or whatever, right? Or his ramp, whatever the case may be. He wipes the floor with a lot of people, and I think that not a lot of people are going to be expecting to see that out of him this season. So I'm super excited to see what he does in the AP system. But I think the biggest tragedy out of AP's entire roster is that Pump Can't is not returning for season
Ah,
13. And that is the saddest thing I've ever
so
heard.
sad.
I was
I,
so excited to watch that man play, and now he's not playing, and it breaks my heart, dude. He was
you
going to
know,
be the best support player in the whole tier, and he robbed that dream from all of us. I was going to literally go through. I was going to make a compilation of all of the successful smokes and flashes that he has thrown in his entire career, and it was going to be like 15 minutes long, and then he robbed that from all of us. So thanks,
You
Pumpkin.
know,
Really appreciate
it's
that.
it's true, honestly. Like when Cal was looking for someone, we were looking for someone to replace Boomev because unfortunately Boomev's PC was kind of tough when it came to running CS2. That Andy had a lot of scheduling issues with work, and Pumpkant was actually one of the people that we were looking at, and he's such a cool dude. He's so chill.
Mm,
Unfortunately, AP swiped him out from under us when we were looking at him, but hey, no hard feelings. It happens.
it happens.
So shout out to Pumpkin, even though you're not playing this season.
Yeah, shout out to Pump Cant indeed. Next up, we got UPS, and I mean, they have had a really strange offseason that not a whole lot of people expected, to say the least. They made quarterfinals as well, or excuse me, they made semifinals last season. But Cooley and Pindy J both moving up to prospect. That's the IGL, and that's one of the star players gone, gone, right? So, yeah, a little bit difficult on them already, to say the least. They need a strong IGL as a result, right? And again, we've talked about them already. Scary is the only option on paper, so they're going to have to figure something out and fast, right? Because they have the earliest first round pick, though. I don't know if they're going to pick up Scary that early. Uh, it's going to be a wild night come draft night, right? And we're going to see maybe something happen in free agency. I don't know. Maybe some interviews with players. I've heard of GMs doing that, where they'll interview certain players to see if they consider themselves ready to call, and they'll sit down and do demo reviews with them. I've had that happen a couple of times, but I don't think we'll be seeing that for season 13. So it's going to be difficult to say. They are the winningest franchise in CSC history, and it's not even close. They have 7 championships across all of their tiers, and the next closest team has like 4, and I think it's Headhunters Guild, and they haven't won in like 3 seasons, right? So UPS by far is the winningest friend. They do nothing but win over there, and that is exactly what their management is concerned with. Rask is no longer at HGM, but they still have the big Kahuna in terms of T Noodle, and I don't think it looks like he's leaving anytime soon. So we may see UPS dominate the recruit tier this season. They actually won the very first recruit grand finals when recruit became a new tier with Scalpel, and I think Cooley was on that team as well.
Yes, he was.
But we'll just have to see. And I think the biggest question mark in my mind, right, for them, trading Dewey Fan away. I mean, we already discussed it, right? He's the entry op support IGL lurk, right? You can't just trade away your biggest player like that. But all jokes aside, he was really a massive player for them in terms of just being. I mean, we joke about it all the time, but he's everywhere at once, right? He's everywhere he's not supposed to be. He's everywhere he's supposed to be. He can do anything and everything all at once. So trading him away was kind of a question mark, but we'll have to see what T Noodle is cooking. We'll have to see if they can go the last mile for their rebuild in season 13. The only player on the roster right now is Cash Money, and he was their upper last season.
Yeah, no kidding. I think T Noodle might come to regret that Dewey fan trade when he gets one tapped by him midseason. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm a big Dewey fan. I know you're a big Dewey fan, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But next up, we got Wet. Wet is going to be an interesting franchise to watch for this season because they are doing a complete rebuild. B-Web and Fallen both got moved up to prospect, and then they dropped one of their star players in Penguins, the Opper, who ended up signing with Frog. And so now what they did instead was they ended up signing or trading for, I'm sorry, Low Seal from AVI. So they picked up Low Seal as their opper from AVI, and they're kind of building around him and Cool Guy from the looks of it. So they're going to be really interesting to see go into this season. We'll see if they can make playoffs again. They were kicked out of the playoffs by Frog, who ended up beating them. I believe that was in the semifinals, or was that the quarterfinals?
Quarterfinals.
That was
Quarterfinals.
quarterfinals. Thank
They
you.
they whooped us in semifinals.
That's right. That's
So
right. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if they can make another playoff appearance, but it's all going to come down to the draft. Again, just like so many of these teams, it's going to come down to the draft.
it really is. But I think another thing that not a lot of people are talking about is Lucio. Lucio to Wet from AVI. And if you saw the rest of that trade, there were so many draft picks traded that day for AVI. I mean, it's insane. They gave up an arm and a leg. They had to give away their upper, right? That's not a small thing, especially in a tier like this where uppers are freaking rarer than a Somalian trust fund, right? Like you will not find an upper anywhere in this tier, and they gave theirs away for basically free, right? They needed the draft picks that bad. So Low Seal to Wet is a big move, and I think he's going to do great in that system. Bort's not playing this season. That is confirmed. He will not be playing for the recruit team this season. So it's literally just Cool Guy and Locio. However, Wet did manage to hang on to their IGL, and now they've got an upper. They're starting to put some weapons together. That's the two most important positions filled for recruits here, right? So now all they need
Right.
is 3-star riflers that can handle that in the draft. They've got a much easier draft day than a lot of these other teams have, and I think we're going to see that reflected in their draft picks. So I'm super excited to
Definitely.
see what comes out of there.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think they're going to be looking mainly for an entry, is what it looks like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't see Cool Guy as necessarily the entry type. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're probably going to be looking at an entry in the first round for those guys. But yeah, moving on to our last team that we got, we have Sav. CrasH, what do you got for us on Sav?
Season 12 champions. I mean, they won. They won everything, and they absolutely whooped everybody doing it. They didn't lose a single. They only lost one time on CS2, and that was to UPS, right? I'm pretty sure it was UPS. I'm like
I believe
90%
so.
sure UPS got a map on them, something like that, right? But regardless, right? Let's look at it this way. They there's not really a whole lot to say, right? The three players in their old recruit team got moved up. Sock, Toad, Brokey, they're all gone, right? They're all up in the prospect dimension, gone, never to be seen again, reduced to atoms, right? However, they did keep Cayman Rider. Somehow, that man absolutely popped off in combines, and they managed to keep him in recruits. So he is he's still in recruit, and he's going to be a weapon for him this season. That man is going to absolutely carry. Well, maybe not carry, but he's going to do some crazy stuff this season, right? And they maintain their IGL and their captain, which is huge. UK Cats. He is what 210 MMR. Not very expensive for a team captain IGL combo, right? So that's huge for them. And it's basically the same guys that were pulling the strings last season, right? So we may see him repeat their success. It's never been done before in recruit team. We've never seen back-to-back champions, and I don't think we've ever seen back-to-back champions ever in CSC. I can't remember a time when there were back-to-back champions, but I'll have to double check. Back-to-back champions in the same tier, but I will have to check. I think UPS did it once, but the point is, it'd be the first time Sav has ever done it. And it'd be the first time it happened in recruits here, but it's a very big possibility, right? So we'll have to see if the same brain can repeat the same success with new weapons.
Yeah, no kidding. I definitely expect Cayman Rider to do some serious damage this season with the rifle. He is not one to be messed with because he will one tap you. I
Oh,
promise.
absolutely! That
he
guy's
will.
insane.
He will rip your face out of the server,
Oh my
kicking and
god.
screaming if he has to. So watch out for Cayman Rider this season. He's gonna be a powerful one for sure. But
Absolutely.
that's all the teams we got. So we can actually move on to FA and DE news now.
Absolutely.
Um, First up for FAs, currently the biggest weapon in free agency is going to be Rymaster.
Oh,
Rymaster had some pretty decent stats in combines, with a 0.88 rating on average, and a 62% headshot percentage. Honestly, those are some pretty solid numbers. I would say that's probably top 5 at least for headshot
gotta be
percentage.
right. I mean,
The only one that I can think of that might be higher than that is Martyr. I think Martyr has like a 75% headshot percentage or something
that's true.
ridiculous like
That's
that.
true.
That guy
Yeah.
has some crazy pre-aims. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think Rymaster is definitely someone to look at in free agency. The other one that I want to touch on is actually Azor. Cut by Hell, he's free agent right now.
It's true.
Um has a lower rating overall than Rymaster in combines, but he didn't play as many combine games this season as Rymaster, I believe. The big thing that you got to know about Azor is he has playoff experience, and
He
he
does.
played for Hell the entire season last season. So that could be a good budget pick because I don't think his MMR is really all that high.
Mhm. I think you're absolutely right. Azor's also going to be a huge pickup at free agency for any team that decides to get him. You know who Rymaster and Azor would both be good pickups for? Deadbeats. Deadbeats could absolutely take advantage of them being free agents. They need somebody. They can't just completely rely
Definitely,
on draft stock, right? Because it's such a gamble. If your pick gets picked before your pick comes up, it's over, right? It's basically over. You have to go on the fly, and drafting on the fly is never something that you want to do, at least in my experience, right? So I think taking advantage of the free agents that are currently in the pool, while they don't necessarily have the best statistics, taking advantage of the ones that have promise and you can watch demos of and do interviews with, I think that's going to be huge, and I mean huge for the success of your team in the earlier seasons. So we may see him go to Deadbeats or somewhere else that is in need of a complete rebuild. Again, keep in mind, Pact of Embers also starting from scratch. Nan also starting from scratch. They need people, and they need people badly, right? So we may see him get signed before this is all said and done. But speaking of free agents, let's go on to DEs. Rye has made it onto the radar of many teams. She's a PFA last season, sub for a lot of teams, got her name out there, really went the extra mile in terms of being a sub. She actually subbed for our team once during season 12 and was super, super agreeable, super chill. Couldn't recommend her enough to be on any, she's good enough to be on any roster out there, right? So you got the 1.01 rating, opening duel rate 59%. We could absolutely see her go to wet because, like you said, they are needing an entry. And a 15, that's almost 60%. 60% of the time, it works every time, right? Send her out mid, watch her get a double entry, round's over, right? So we'll see how that goes. Whether she goes to wet or not, we do not know. But she's definitely going to be somebody to keep an eye on in terms of the second and third round picks.
definitely, definitely. Rye is kind of one of those players, in my opinion, who's really better than her stats suggest. I remember I was in a combine game with her earlier in combines before a lot of these like high tier players that are in prospect now got moved up. And I think we were in a game against like both Brian and Poutine. And they are like in like the top level of prospect almost now, I believe. At the very least,
They
Brian
run
is. Brian's
prospect.
already
They run
signed.
prospect. Brian,
Yeah.
Sky, and Poutine, they run prospect right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we were getting stomped. Like we were getting wrecked. But Rye was the only one that was able to keep up with me in terms of like kills and damage.
Mm,
So the way that I look at it, it was me and like four other DEs basically. So the way that I look at it, like she's definitely someone to keep an eye on in the draft, for sure, for sure.
absolutely. And
Like I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up going first round.
mhm. And next up on the list, I mean, is it any surprise we're talking about this guy? Frickin' V Sugma, the projected number one overall pick, statistically the best DE in recruit, right? And I mean, it happened last season with Drop, now High, who's in playing in prospect now, and we saw it with Mills the season before then, right? So I don't think it's entirely out of the water guess to say he's going to go in the first round.
Yeah, yeah, no, he will definitely be going in the first round for sure. One thing that shocked me actually, numbers came out last night, at least as of the time of recording this video. Numbers came out last night, and they only have V Sugma at 259 MMR. Can you believe that?
It's insanity.
Isn't that
That's
crazy? He's got
insanity.
to put that in
He's
perspective. He has the
he's
same MMR as Noble, my new IGL.
That's insanity.
Isn't that wild? I figured
Look
he'd
at
be way.
I figured he'd be way higher too, just because of like how hard he was. Just absolutely, he ran everybody's fade in combines. Like that guy was. I don't want to say he's smurfing because I definitely think there's a lot of areas that he could work on, at least just from what little I've seen of him. Right, but he is gonna run recruit. Well, he's not gonna run recruit, but he's gonna be a huge weapon. He's gonna be their Cayman rider for whoever picks him up. Right, man's gonna be a demon out there. And for only 200 and what 59. something like
I
that.
believe so. Yeah,
Dude, that's insanity. That's absolute insanity. So,
definitely, definitely. I think the only person that might be able to give him a run for his money might be like Sinbad, maybe, or Huntwick. I guess Sinbad or Huntwick are kind of the only
Huntwick
ones that I think
is Huntwick in recruit? I thought he was
he is.
prospect.
He got dropped down. He got dropped down at the
Really?
last minute.
Oh
Yep.
my god, that changes everything.
Exactly. So him
Holy.
and Sinbad are pretty high on the MMR list right now.
Hmm.
So we'll have to see who they go to. They might go in the, top five, I would say. They'll probably go in the top five. But we'll have to see. We could see Sugma slide because of his MMR. We'll have to
Hmm.
take a look, Just doesn't it just depends. It just
We'll
depends,
have to
right?
see. We'll have to see indeed. But up next on the chopping block, who we got down there on that list?
We have Bun, the only
Hmm.
remaining Opper in the draft, or at least the only remaining dedicated Opper that we know of
Hmm.
in the draft. He has a point 0.87 rating, and he also has a 81.6 ADR. So really, not all that bad of stats. Could be a solid Opper to pick up. And you got to remember, like Bun has played a ton of games. Bun has played a lot.
He's played a lot
So
of games. Yeah, he's been there
and he
basically
was
every night.
playing early too. So his stats might actually be lower than they will be during the season because he was playing against a lot of these guys that got moved up to prospect. Again, 42% of recruit got moved up to prospect over this offseason, which is nuts. I think that's the most that's ever been moved up in a tier at any given time in CSC. I can't
It's a
think of
big
another
number.
time.
It's a
Yeah.
big no. It's enough players, I think, to make like 4.5 teams. Or with the players that got moved up with numbers, I think it's like somewhere around. And this is just returning players. I mean, this we're not counting DEs in this number. Just returning players, it was enough to make 4.5 rosters. That's almost like that's over a third of the tier. Just gone prospect dimension, right? Like they just opened
And
the
to the
portal and
Shadow
shoved
Realm.
them in, right? Just throwing them in one by one. You're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone. And it's like, hey, so again, another thing to keep in mind is a lot of these stats are going to be a lot lower for the guys that did stay in recruit, right? Because no shame to them, but they were playing against players that just they were outmatched, right? And there's your stats are going to take a hit when you're outmatched. That's just the way it is. So I think that these guys are a lot better than their stats are suggesting.
Definitely. And, even playing one season on a team in a team format is going to make you think about the game in such a different way, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, just speaking for myself, like I was on one of the bad teams last season and I still felt like I got a lot out of it. I feel like I've improved a ton as a player and I feel like actually ready to kind of take on the captain role in the team dynamic. So, yeah, I mean, these guys that have moved up, like they moved up for a reason, right? They moved up because their team play was great. They moved up because their aim is good because they were, 10 manning all off season. They never took a break, but like also they're moving up because their team play and their comms and their nades, their util usage, all of it. Like that's the whole reason that these guys got moved up.
Mm. I think you're absolutely right. And we're gonna see we may see another wave like this coming next season. I mean next off season, we may see another maybe we'll be top 50%, right? It moves up because numbers just hates us for some reason. I don't know what it I can't say us anymore, but they hate y'all, right? It's absolutely disgusting that happened and it threw everybody for a loop. Nobody gambled on that, not even us. And we like have foresight, right? So it was definitely difficult to see coming. But moving on to our next free agent, or excuse me, not free agent, draft eligible player, Mick. He could be proved to be a solid sleeper pick. 0.98 rating, 75% KAST. That's kill assist. Kill assisted or traded. I'm pretty sure that's what that means. I haven't
Yeah,
looked at
kill
it. I haven't looked at that stat in a long time.
Yeah, kill assist and trades. Mickwick is kind of an interesting player because he can actually call. I have seen him call in combines before. So that's one thing to note. He is a possible IGL. I don't know how much he actually wants to do that during the season. We'll have to see. But he could be something that, or he could be a DE that some of these teams that are looking for IGLs might kind of try to push him along into that role. We'll just have to see, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, Mickwick, great comms, great guy. Yeah, that's really all I got.
Oh yeah, and I mean another thing to keep in mind is that him and Huntwick best friends, and they're also friends with Gear Slayer and Erock, right? They all play in a separate Discord server outside of the CSC. I see him basically every day in there. So the grind don't stop for him or his buddies, and they have already pre-existing chemistry, right? So getting him and Huntwick on the same roster gonna be massive for them. So we may see him traded for in the preseason. That'd be a huge news. But time will tell. But 75% of the time, getting a kill, getting an assist, or being traded is mind-boggling for this tier. So that's definitely good. And another thing to bring up is that YC will be starting from scratch this season. They have the third overall pick, so they're going to be trading, right? They're going to be trading for these picks. They need draft picks really badly, right? Just to secure those weapons that they need to make the season work. And I think we're going to see a lot of other teams do that as well.
Definitely. Deadbeats is one that comes to mind with just Dewey Fan on the roster. That's going to
Mhm.
be kind of tough to build around without, some FA signings or some like trades for picks. They are going to need quite a bit there to make a
Mhm.
roster that's going to be really competitive in the tier.
Absolutely. And with that, that finishes out all of the teams for the recruit tier of season 13. Now we head off to the final segment of preseason picture. Teams MMR numbers as of right now, as of the time of this recording, we have Aviary at 1,070 with 4 players signed, Abyss Walkers at 503 with 2 players signed, Angry Pirates at 596 with 3 players signed, and then ATL at 837 with 4 players signed. Deadbeats at 279 with 1 player signed. Wet at 362 with 2 players signed. And then Hellfire at 928 with 4 players signed. NA Nades 598 with 3 players signed. Order of the Samurai 652 with 3 players signed. Savannah 491 with 2 players signed. And then FRG has 643 with 3 players signed. UPS is at 223 with 1 player signed. And then What Do You Beef is at 839 with 4 players signed. And Yokai Cat, or excuse me, the Pact of
Back to
Embers. I
them.
keep forgetting. It says Yokai Cafe in the script. But they are at 100 MMR with 1 player signed. So they have a lot of cap space to work with for sure. But just going down the list, I mean, Aviary, we talked about it earlier, right? No cap space. They got cap space for like 4 guys, right? So they're gonna have to figure that out. I don't know what they're gonna do. We can't really suggest options, right? Because that teeters on the edge, so we're just not going to go near it, right? And I don't really want
Right.
to get anybody's feelings hurt, so we're not going to go near what their options are. But they don't have a whole lot, put it lightly.
Definitely.
So
And when you look at the MMR cap for last season's MMR cap was 1190, right? So them being at
this season is
1070.
1210. This season is 1210
Is it?
MMR.
It
Yes,
was
it's
released.
1210.
I didn't know
Yes,
it was
it's on the
released yet.
website.
That's
It's on
good
the
to know.
website.
That's good to know.
Mhm.
It's funny because Noah was convinced it was going to go up, and I was convinced it was going to go down personally. I just thought
Mhm.
like, oh, it has to go down, but no, I guess it goes up. All right, number
I
goes up.
I think it should be lower. Personally, I think it should be lower because I mean, look at the only other 2 teams that have 4 players signed. They're at 839 and 928. Look how much room they got to wiggle, right? That's
No kidding. No kidding.
should just be a little bit lower. You know what I mean? But I'm not a CSC higher up. I'm like I said, I'm just talking out on the screen, so I don't really know a whole lot. But yeah, Aviary, they're in a pickle to say the least. And Noah, the big brain on him, is going to have a lot of work to do in order to work out the situation. And luckily, he's got Hawkish behind him, from what it seems, because Hawkish made some disgusting trades to make that roster happen. So we'll see how it pays off for him in the middle of the season. Abyss Walkers at 503, 2 players signed. They got a lot of space to work with, and they could basically take anybody still. They got like roughly 600, 700, I think, something around those lines to spare. 3 players. That's three 200 MMR players. Like
Right.
you're goaded, right? You're freaking goaded off that. So
Well, and with Triple Man sitting at around the 100 to I think he's 115 or something like that
something
MMR
like that,
range.
yeah. So
That leaves a lot of space for them, so they can kind of pick up whoever they want. They've just got
yeah,
a ton of room, ton of room.
yeah.
And honestly, even just looking at the rest of these rosters that have 4 players signed, I'm seeing ATL, Hell, and Cow that still have 4 keepers. All of these guys have tons of space
Mm,
in their rosters to just sign kind of whoever they want, pretty
mhm.
much. They've got a very, very flexible MMR range here for people that they might want to pick up. So it's going to be interesting.
And we didn't bring it up earlier, but the fourth member of ATL is going to be Laps, recently signed out of free agency. So excited to see what he does there. But yeah, you're right. They're at 4 players, and they got room to buy any. They got room to buy a contender player. What?
That's
Like
true. That's true.
they could literally buy me, sign me, right, and then demote me twice, and I would be able to play. Like
That's
that's stupid. That is stupid, right?
That is
But
crazy. That is crazy. I don't know if ATL's GM is going to be wanting to demote you
no,
twice.
no, I
I
don't
don't
think
know
that's
if
gonna
that's
happen.
I don't know if that's kosher, but
No, I mean they moved me up to contender after numbers lock. Who says they can't move me down, right? So we'll have to see how it goes. But I have seen them move up people. I've never seen them demote someone midseason, but I have seen them promote someone midseason before. I think
really,
it almost happened to Mills back in season 11, from what I remember. But it just didn't work out that way. So we'll see how things go. But again, Hellfire, 4 player signed, 928 MMR. Again, they can buy basically anybody, right? I mean, it's no secret. So uh, yeah, I think that the other 3 teams that also have 4 players signed just spent their money a lot more wisely, and now they have decent money to work with come draft day. But AVI, they're really investing in the free agency market, and who can blame them? So we'll have to see how it goes. But that just about wraps it up for season 13's preseason picture. Seagull, you got anything before we go?
I got nothing. CrasH, thanks for having me on. I was really pumped to be a part of this episode, be a part of this. Glad to be a guest host. Love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We loved having you. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so very much for watching. This has been the State of Recruit preseason picture, season 13. Have a wonderful day and be safe.